To order. Thank you. Of Monday, July the 10th, 2023. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement, and Councillor Baines will do the honors today.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. For more than 15,000 years, the First Nations walked upon and cared for the lands we now call home. Anishinaabek, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe, and many others who cared for their families and communities the way we now seek to care for ours. The town of Collingwood acknowledges the Lake Simcoe-Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818 and respects all of the nation-to-nation agreements that have formed relationships with the original inhabitants of Turtle Island. The reality of our shared history, the current contributions of Indigenous people within our community, and seeks to continue empowering expressions of pride amongst all of the diverse stakeholders in this area. We seek to do better, to continue to recognize, learn, and grow in friendship and community, nation to nation.
I'm now looking for a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda. The motion reads as follows: that the content of the council agenda for July 10, 2023 be adopted as amended, and it's amended to remove item 7.1, update on water capacity and land use planning study. The Deputy Mayor and Councillor Doherty, thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, and that's unanimous. Would anyone wish to declare pecuniary interest? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. I will be recusing myself from agenda item 12.1, bylaw 2023-063, the road assumption bylaw with regard to the Mountain Road widening project, as a member of my family is a principal in one of the corporate owners of property of the land being assumed.
Thank you. If anyone finds himself in a conflict as the meeting progresses, just let me know. I'm now looking for a motion to adopt minutes. The motion is as follows: that the minutes of the council meeting held June 19, 2023, and special council meeting held June 26, 2023, be approved as presented. Councillor Jeffrey, seconded by Councillor Perry. Any comments? All those in favor, and that's unanimous. So we'll start our community announcements this afternoon with our Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. I wanted to mention the Blood Donor Clinic on Wednesday, July 12th at the Royal Canadian Legion on Ontario Street from 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. For more information about booking an appointment, you can access the website at www.blood.ca. There's a critical need for donations, and if Wednesday isn't an option, hopefully you'll be able to find an opportunity somewhere close by. The second item I had was over the past few weeks and into the next couple, I've had quite a few community engagement opportunities. One I will highlight briefly is on Thursday at 3 p.m. Going to be on hand to represent council to provide recognition to Greg Goldsworthy as he celebrates his 50th anniversary of his business, the Financial Center of Collingwood. Congratulations to Greg on his success as a business owner, and our appreciation as well to his community service. Such things as his recent annual assistance administrating the Canada Day Citizenship, it was one of them. Also, congratulations to staff on the success of the July 7th Live and Original event at the amphitheater. The hill was packed, and to the point where there was only standing room. The entertainment was fabulous, as it was with all the concerts I attended this past few days. I know Mayor Hamlin will be speaking about the Collingwood Music Festival, but I just have to say how much I enjoyed the Toronto Mass Gospel Choir performance last evening. The audience participation requirement was a workout, so there was that added bonus to the fantastic performance. And those are the items I have.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey.
So thank you very much, Mayor Hamlin. I ran into a couple of old acquaintances and friends over the past few events that I've felt the need to really revisit and talk about their success. But first of all, I did meet one of them at the Orchard Health Foods retirement / congratulations on taking the business over event, which was spectacular. So congratulations to Tony on his retirement and Tiffany on continued success with that business. But there was a longtime friend and acquaintance in Tracy from Breaking Down Barriers. And I just was, it reminded me of the things that sometimes maybe we take for granted that are going on in Collingwood. So Breaking Down Barriers is there for us in promoting a new perspective on disability. Their motto is no one is left behind. And the programs they have are independent living skills, peer support, resources and supports, and direct funding, self-managed attendance services. So I thought I'd give them a little shout out at our meeting today. And then also I had the opportunity to meet up with an artist who is currently displaying her work, retrospective paintings by Roberta Spicer at the Art Walk Gallery for July and August at the Collingwood Public Library. So I thought I'd give a shout out to her as well, and to all the artists who have the opportunity to display their work at our library. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Worship. Just 2 items. The first is that I was at the farmers market in our Collingwood town booth with our climate change specialists and representatives of the Collingwood Climate Action Team. And it was such a great opportunity to engage with members of the public one-on-one in a very relaxed atmosphere. And I would just encourage residents to always keep in mind that the town is there every week. And if you ever wish to speak to a member of staff or a member of council, there's your opportunity, and very unstructured and so worth the conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. The second item was actually, I think you're going to speak to it actually, Mayor, but we just seem to be music between our continued success of Live and Original and now the Collingwood Music Festival. There's just wonderful sounds in the air, and certainly has been embraced by the community and our visitors as well. So congratulations to all the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Houston.
Thank you. Collingwood Pride begins this Friday in downtown Collingwood with a flag raising at 5 p.m. and continues throughout the weekend with a series of great events, including the Pride Parade this Saturday. This will be a weekend-long celebration of our community's diversity, vibrancy, and strength. And for anybody that's interested in the large schedule of events that's happening, you can go to pridecollingwood.com.
Thank you. Councillor Potts.
Thanks, Mayor Hamlin. Over the last couple of weeks, I've had the privilege to attend our local live lunch down here in downtown Collingwood, and want to shout out to the BIA to attend and to experience the local talent we have, along with the restaurants. Fish and Sips just currently this past week, and Burgers the week before. It just goes to show what we do have in our own community, and the residents getting out to enjoy the atmosphere and take in the event. Also, I had the privilege on Friday night to attend the amphitheater, and I was blown away by the crowd, and just congratulations to staff. Although a lot of the music being played was before my day, it was quite enjoyable, and I certainly look forward to attending it in the future. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Ring.
Thank you very much, Mayor Hamlin. Excuse me. The public can have their say regarding the short-term accommodation licensing draft framework on Wednesday, July 12th between 5:30 and 5 and 6:30. Everyone is welcome to attend the licensing draft framework open house at the Collingwood Public Library in the community rooms on the 3rd floor. Citizens are also encouraged to provide feedback by completing the short-term accommodation survey. This survey will be available until July 31st at 4 p.m. Links to the draft framework and the survey can be found at engage.collingwood.ca/survey. short-term-accommodations. The next opportunity to attend an affordable housing master plan public consultation will be Tuesday, August 15th, also at the library. The start time is tentatively scheduled for either 5 or 6 p.m. The exact time will be announced later. We strongly encourage all interested citizens to attend, so please mark your calendars. And I guess we've already had, 3 others that have made the announcement about Friday night, but I just wanted to touch on it as well and maybe give you who's coming up in the future. And it was well attended, as everybody said, and it was a great time. And the next concert is scheduled at the amphitheater for Saturday, July 22nd, with the J. Kipps Band performing at 7 and the Blackburn Brothers following at 8 o'clock. And I was going to touch on, met a counselor there that didn't know who Foreigner was, but I think you already know who that was. So anyway, I won't say any more. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. A new TV station and app has been launched in southern Georgian Bay with content specifically focusing on this region. The new app, called Baywatch, we won't make any comments about that, is being produced by On the Bay magazine, just south of us here, whose offices are just located there. The Baywatch app, which can be downloaded via the App Store onto smartphones, tablets, smart TVs, and laptops, contains live cams from several locations in the region, local weather, news tickers, lifestyle, and news stories, all about life and people here in southern Georgian Bay. And I met the wonderful entrepreneur, Moses Namer himself, had a long discussion with him, and it's an exciting app, and it's nice to see how fast this region is growing and how its content will be shown here in this new app. So I recommend that all. And follow up with that is a shout out to Canadian Michael Woods, who won the Tour de France, well, the stage yesterday, the 9th stage, by rocketing up the Puy de Dôme, an extinct volcano in France, clutching the victory from the American who was just behind him. It was very exciting, and well done to Michael Woods for having done that. And I understand that he frequently vacations up in this area, so he knows it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. Just to echo Councillor Doherty's comments on the market and any interaction with council. I was there in the morning for a couple of hours, and it was a fantastic chance to meet people in an informal setting. So I'm looking forward to the next one. As far as the library goes, the YA summer reading program started July 3rd and runs until September 5th. Every book you read earns one ballot for a chance to win the main prize, a $75 Town of Collingwood gift card. Every finished line on your bingo card earns you one surprise bag, and you can pick up bingo cards and ballots and prizes from GIA and the youth department at the library. Also, in collaboration with Collingwood Youth Center in support of Collingwood Pride, the library will host a Make Your Own Pride Button Night on Wednesday, July 12th from 4 to 6. It will be for ages 11 to 18, and all buttons made will be handed out during the Collingwood Pride Parade. So that is a fantastic opportunity there. And join us on Friday, July 14th from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. for the Simple Machine Show, How to Catch a Mouse. Murphy the Mouse is causing havoc in the library. Children must build ridiculous mouse traps before it's too late. Will they do it? Will Murphy the Mouse get caught? Kids will learn the science behind simple machines while having fun, and that's for ages 5+. And lastly, a friendly reminder that the library is closed all Sundays throughout the summer months of July and August. And that's everything. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I don't have a lot more to add to what's been said, so I won't repeat them, maybe just add little things. So with respect to our new news channel, which is a bit like a CP24, if you download the app or just Google baywatch.ca, you'll certainly find it. And one of our longtime residents, George Cherney, was writing about this online on the weekend, along the lines that with all our large online giants preventing the sharing of news now, we in South Georgian Bay and in Collingwood we will not be starved for local content. right? 2 online papers, now 2 TV stations, and several radio stations. So we all, press and media, we consider ourselves blessed. And if you're trying to keep track of all the music that's going on here, I'll just summarize. A lot of Fridays at the amphitheater, you can sit and get a wonderful view out into the bay. So just look, as our deputy mayor said, on the schedule, and you'll see that. Wednesdays at lunch, as was mentioned, as right downtown on the sidewalk, the BIA at lunchtime has the music and the food. And then Wednesday in the evenings from 6 to 8 is over outside our museum on the grass there. They have beautiful jazz and blues concerts every Wednesday. And of course, our Collingwood Music Festival, that we are so lucky that Daniel Nikoski chose Collingwood as his home several years ago. And we are now 2 days into a 7-day extravaganza of music to everyone's tastes. They're now after the first Saturday night concert, which was at the Millennium Park outdoors in the rain, yes. Very hearty souls were there. It's moved inside to the First Presbyterian Church, and the tickets are only $40, includes all the tax and everything. And they've been very fortunate because of the support they've gotten from community sponsors, business people, and all levels of government, including ours. The tickets at $40 are only a third of the cost of putting the production on. So please take advantage. If you have the time, you'll enjoy it. And lastly, with respect to the Pride activities taking place this weekend, after the flag raising at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, there's going to be opening ceremonies in the, what I'll call, headquarters for Pride this weekend, which is the parking lot behind this building in Eddie Bush. So there'll be a little stage and some introductory remarks for the opening. So thanks for all that. The next item on the agenda, we have 2 deputations. The first one, 6.1, has to do with 31 St. Marie Street. So could Mrs. Akinyele please come forward? And I'm sure I've mispronounced your name, so could you please start with telling us your name and your address? Thank you. Thank you. Please just stand up, talk in the microphone there. See the microphone at the podium? Yeah. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm representing my husband and the members of the staff in our office on number 31 St. Mary Street, which is Dr. Akinyele's office. We've been at this location now since, I think, 2001 or 2002. I think Mayor Geddes had just left the office at that time, and he came to congratulate us that it's a very good location we're in, and he thinks a lot of businesses would follow suit. Okay. Can you hear me now? Mm-hmm. You want me to start all over?
No.
Okay, so this road has been growing, and our business too has been growing, and everybody loves the community. When we moved in there, we had our office on Peel Street. We never realized the situation we're going to be facing when we moved into St. Mary Street. It is like a death trap for my staff, myself, and my husband. And sometimes for the patients who come in to see us, when they come into the driveway, for them to come out is extremely dangerous. So I put a red mark in there, no parking at the back, because I don't want to take any responsibility of any accidents or incidents in there. On several occasions, when we want to get out of our office, initially there were no parking meters on the road in there. And I do know that the council needs, the community will need the money. I had an audience with one of the mayors in the past. I spoke to him about the problem. I spoke to the councillor who made the appointment for me to speak to him, but I did not get anywhere because it was like we were talking about dollars and not our lives. We are working to save the lives in the community. And I was so frustrated that day I left. In the past couple of months, I had an audience with one of the staff, and I told her the problem I was facing before we get a serious accident or litigations to the council, because I know if somebody loses his or her lives, it will not stop there. People will push further. So I spoke to somebody and assisted me that there is a way to move forward, to speak to other people. So on the weekend of, second weekend in May, I had the opportunity, I had a call from Mr. West, who is an engineer. Had appointment, came to our office, spoke to me. I told him, like, if a truck is parked in front of our property, another truck is parked on the other side, we cannot drive out because we can see the vehicle coming on the other side. We can see the one coming on the other side as well, because the two vehicles have kind of blurred our sight into getting to the main road. Either the other vehicle slammed the brake, this one slams the brake. So I told him. And many times too, when I want to drive into a driveway, I have to make sure I stop, have eye contact with the person in the parking space there. Because sometimes they want to move, I want to come into my driveway. And it never used to be like that before. So on this day, Mr. West came in and he drove his vehicle into the property, but he had to come out. He drove out and I said, how did you go? He said, it's trickish. I said, I don't want to hear trickish. It is dangerous because you are in a car and there are two cars parked in there. It is not two SUVs parked in there. I said, it is very dangerous. So he said, well, I'm going to have to send somebody else to come and look. I have not seen anybody till this moment. 2 days after, I was going to be killed in that spot because I wanted to get out of the parking space. And the other thing he said to me is, he said, I won't advise you to back out of your property. It is better for you to drive out. I said, I beg your pardon? For a property that I'm paying taxes on, you are telling me a way to come in and come out. I said, you need to get rid of these 2 meters. They are dangerous. He said, well, I'll get somebody to come over. I haven't seen anybody. So on this particular day, I was getting out of the office. Gradually, slowly, I was moving out. The vehicle coming on that side, wham, stopped. This one stopped. The woman who parked had to move back for me to be able to see. And I was almost in the middle of the road. And I just was so shaken, so terrified, because the whole back of my truck would have gone. So I called Mr. West. I said, what is the problem? He said he knew I was panicking, and because my voice was just all over, he said, I want you to pull over. Tell me the situation. I told him. I said, number 1, my vehicle would have gone. Number 2, I would have been injured because of these 2 parking meters, because I can't see. And you yourself knew you couldn't see properly. And you're telling me it is trickish to come out. So what are the 2 meters doing in there? They need to be removed. Many times my husband will be called as an emergency. He wants to drive out to go quickly to the hospital to help. He has to do it slowly and slowly to be able to get out of the place. And I figured, and I told him, I said, I don't think we don't have many more years to start looking for another property to move before we get killed or somebody gets killed on this road. Maybe then somebody would have to do something. So I said to him, I said, we have to get this to the council. and go and talk about it and see whether we can get a solution to this problem we're having. Unfortunately, last week I saw the parking meter guys cleaning all the meters. Somebody had gone to blacken them all out. And I thought, what are these guys doing? They said somebody sprayed black ink on all the meters in that area. Because they're not good in that place. I don't know who did. I don't, because I was even away, I was out of the country then. But when I came to hear that, I said, somebody needs to do something about this place. There was a time they almost took one beside me off the ground, and it was replaced again. I don't know whether you understand how the parking I'm trying to describe is on St. Marie. Because the property on my left that used to belong to Mr. Grizzly used to be a smaller building. It's now so big. The one on my right hand used to be a tiny building. It's now so big. And then they now brought these 2 meters. It's only me, only our driveway that have these 2 meters. All the other people have free entrances to their properties. I felt something needs to be done. So I'm so sorry, the mayor, that I had to call your office that day, because I tell you, I was lost because I didn't know exactly what to do or who to call. When I called this guy and he was of no help to me, I thought, I have 4 young children that I brought up in this town, and which we all relish, we all cherish the town, what we're doing to the community. We all appreciate everybody, and we all live like a family. But I don't want to lose my husband, or my husband loses me, or lose any of my staff, because they're working for me. And I don't know, I said to the mayor then, I do not know how much each of these meters you get from them. It was only 20 cents per hour or for 2 hours then. Why don't we get rid of them?
You know, I totally understand what you're saying. And to my way of thinking, really, the meters aren't always about how much money they generate. It's to control where the traffic is parking. Your problem does not sound insurmountable to me. So I'm just going to ask, Director Slama is the head of the department that Mr. West is part of. Director Slama, have you had an opportunity to look at this yet, or do you need more time to consider the additional information you received today?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hello, Mrs. Akinyele. So I did speak with Manager West, who, as Mrs. Akinyele has described, did, visit the site and have some conversations with Mrs. Akinyele, and subsequent to that meeting, did also talk internally with another member from the engineering team. Certainly, from an engineering perspective, we see the difficulties of the narrow driveway on her property, and as mentioned by Mrs. Akinyele, more recent reconstruction of certainly one of the homes, which is very close to the property line. So exactly as she's described, you have to move very slowly out of the driveway and proceed very cautiously, especially if there are vehicles parked in the parking stalls in front of her property, and then in the stalls adjacent to her property. From an engineering perspective and our standards with the parking stalls, those parking stalls do meet our standard. So I think it is one of the questions for council, I guess, or one of the decisions that council may need to consider is, do we want to see that parking stall in front of her property? If there wasn't a parking stall there, certainly that would alleviate quite a bit of the visibility. You'd still have a parking stall in front of the adjacent property. which may cause some concern, but that would alleviate some of it. So it's a little bit of a matter, right? You know, when we, like I said, when we look at it from an engineering perspective, our standards as we have them, you know, that stall meets our standards with respect to this, and in that sake, we're looking at the setbacks of the stalls from the edge of the driveways, but you know, more from a practical functionality, you know, maybe something else needs to be considered.
Thank you for your comments on that. So I'll turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor. And perhaps I'll just put a motion on the floor now that Director Slum and her staff work with our deputant to find a satisfactory arrangement that would include removing the parking stall in front of her home. I have a, sorry, you go ahead.
And as a seconder, we have Councillor Doherty. So that is on the table. Does anybody wish to speak?
I'd be requesting it being waived as well, the notice being waived, so we
So
can.
we'll deal with the waive first. And that's put forward by Mayor Hamlin and seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. All those in favor of waiving? Unanimous. And we'll move on to the motion itself. And I'll ask Mayor Hamlin if she would like to speak first or last.
I'll just address it. I very much appreciate your coming forward and sharing your concerns. Sometimes engineering standards have to be tempered with reality, as I think our directors pointed out today. So thank you, and I hope we can resolve this with you.
And I'll open up to anyone else. Councillor Baines?
Perhaps a novel suggestion, but perhaps the parking stall space could be taken up with bike parking, because I would imagine you would be able to see around bicycles. You put bikes, I'm serious, because always use more bike racks. Just a thought. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Not seeing anyone, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. And I'll turn it back to Mayor Hamlin.
Thank you, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
We have one other deputation today. It's Dennis Waddle. Yes, thank you. Have I pronounced your name right?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, thank you. Just
Having a verb for a last name. How are we doing with the mic? Okay? Okay, great. Good afternoon, and thank you, council members, for your commitment to public service and the opportunity for me to speak before you. Albeit 10 minutes is far too short for this subject, but appearing here is democratic, and that's important. I will be seeking advice on the process of coming before a standing committee with adequate time to present details with dialogue. My name is Dennis Waddle, and I am a devoted citizen and a proud resident of our community in which I am thrilled to live and blessed to live. I'm also an individual who is aligned to an ever-growing number of concerned citizens, not just locally, but throughout Canada and abroad. Our bonding is organic and born out of necessity. We are focused on contemporary issues with access to world-class, non-funded experts. And because we understand the importance for people to get the facts. Because after all, we're at war. We're at war on information. Case in point, the recent Trudeau Bill C-11. They can call it what it is. It is, in fact, a censorship on internet. What concerns me, going down the slope here, all it takes on this bill is for an amendment where they would decide and make it a arrestable criminal offense for those by means passing deemed misinformation and disinformation. I hate those words. They're brand new, aren't they? Misinformation and disinformation by the Ministry of Truth, also known as the federal government. Please take note. Our group is not on the offense. We are definitely on the defense. had worked several days on this speech. Yesterday afternoon, I tossed it. When I realized I need to talk to you, not at you, because you do not know what you don't know. That's the end of my long introduction. Now to the meat of the matter. If people like asking permission to leave the neighborhood or to drive their car on certain roads, have surveillance cameras everywhere that monitor every move, including facial recognitions, then they are going to love the social engineering marvel of the 50-minute city. And they'll probably welcome the digital ID and the central bank currency that would be rolled out at a time that is most convenient for those who call the shots. My purpose is to have you go through the videos and documents that I have forwarded in the deputation so you will know what you're up against when it comes to the decision-making process. In my deputation, I forwarded the following: 2 videos on climate change, 3 on the 50-minute city, 1 on the WEF, that's actually the World Economic Forum, 1 on government compromise, a link to the Oxfordshire City Council Protocol on 50-minute city, a hard copy of the C40 mission statement, a hard copy of a summary of Oxford's restrictions. I believe you need to go through all the information. However, the first video on the climate change sets the tone for real issue moving forward. Just when you watch the video, just check out the credentials of the presenter. He's a renowned scientist, Dr. Patrick Moore, a former founder of Greenpeace. He provides a detailed scientific exposure of the carbon con. Yes, I did say con. And the climate change propaganda. Frankly, it's a must-see. He is a Canadian who has been heralded as an international hero for his efforts on saving the environment and nature. I think he's probably lost some of his shine now because he speaks truth to the narrative. I believe it's very important for you to know about the World Economic Forum. They are unelected stewards and of much of the upheaval and chaos that we have experienced as a society in the last 3 years. At this point, I would like to refer to a handout. Hopefully you have it with you. I asked City Clerk to ask you to do so. It's an excerpt from the C40 website that I had shared with you. I'm going to read it quickly because of time constraint. The introduction is, the initiative for this global project gained traction and was adopted by an international organization called Cities Climate Leadership Group, also known as C40, in 2022. It is a global network of mayors consisting of 94 members. It has the support of the World Economic Forum. The following is taken from the C40's website homepage. What we do today will determine whether or not there is a thriving for our communities, our cities, and the natural world around us. We know that climate breakdown and rising inequality, compounded by COVID-19 pandemic, require an unprecedented response to match the scale of these crises. That's why C40's mission is to halve the emissions of its member cities within a decade while improving equity to do with climate. That's social engineering, by the way. Building resilience and creating the conditions for everyone, everywhere to thrive. Mayors of C40 cities are on the leading edge of climate action and are deploying a science-based and collaborative approach to help the world limit global heating to 1.5 degrees Celsius and build healthy, equitable, and resilient communities. In my former career, last half being a police administrator, I've read many government documents. I recognize government speak. This is classic. Equity is I know what it's all about, being in provincial government for 2 years. And what they do is they hide problematic words with nicer adjectives. Who doesn't want thriving? Who doesn't want everyone enjoying? And they'll throw in the problem word amongst a series of adjectives. I know how it works. Now, generally speaking, I understand that any due diligence in making decisions on any protocol would include, amongst other things, checking the integrity of your collaborator. In this case, the collaborator is the World Economic Forum. There is information on the video I sent, but it gets even worse. When council receives millions on funding for SDG projects, SDG, everyone knows, is Sustainable Development Goals, and the 15-minute city implementation, your decisions will actually come from these globalist bureaucrats who will dictate what is to happen in our area. In short, you and we will lose our autonomy, and that is the goal. But you might say, we get our funding from the federal government. It's the same thing. Why do I say that? Please watch the video, Government Compromised. In it, you will see the braggart, the founder, Klaus Schwab of the WFA, stating, quote, "We have infiltrated over half of the Trudeau cabinet." Fact, amongst other governments. Let's take a look at the WEF culture. Founder, Klaus Schwab, and his sidekick, Harari, I have trouble with that name, overtly mock our creator until they will become godlike with the advent of transhumanism, and they are marketing full time. In short, they are focused on changing humanity by merging with machine. That's your main collaborator. The video I sent on the WEF touches on the Great Reset. It starts off with, "You will own nothing and be happy." Oh, did I say not happy? I have my marker. It just so happens the removal of private property is a crucial step for the following to take hold in any democracy, such as totalitarianism, fascism, Marxism, communism, collectivism. Under many names, with the same result: no freedom, no liberty. And if left unabated, it is heading our way probably within a year or so, and definitely prior to their agenda, deadline 2030. That agenda is an important word, because that's what it is. When we understand the agenda, we can understand the steps leading to their desired results, and that's what we have been focusing on. This situation unfairly puts this council in an awkward position. I understand, and I've been privy, I understand you've done a lot of work and you're finished on your corporate climate protection, and now you'll be focusing on the community, meaning residents.
So you're at 10 minutes. Can you wrap up,
I got
please?
my last paragraph. Okay. I understand puts you in an awkward position, damned if you do, damned if you don't. In conclusion, our Judeo-Christian principles, from which many came from, our laws and values came from, has been constantly under attack. I feel it is fitting to end with scripture. Matthew 16, verse 26 states, "What does it profit a man who shall gain control of the whole world and lose his own soul? And what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, those are the end of our deputations for today. As I mentioned in the beginning when we were setting the agenda, we're not having an update on our water capacity and land use study. As council is aware, our water plant's out for tender right now, and there's not much to say as we're waiting. So there'll be an update in a future meeting. I'm now looking for a mover and a seconder for these minutes, that the minutes of the following boards be hereby received and recommendations contained therein be approved. This relates to Collingwood Police Services Board minutes, April 6, 2023. Councillor Ring, Councillor Potts, and our Deputy Mayor. I haven't done that for a while. Okay, any comments? Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, and I read, and we do have later in the agenda under consent item the letter that the commander sent in regards to police presence in the schools. Is it possible to get a little more information about that, the timing of it, and things like that? I was a little troubled. I didn't realize it was moving in that direction, and would that be okay?
Sure. Yeah, I was going to speak to it when we came to correspondence, but I'm happy to address it now even, and perhaps, so as you know, our Police Services Board, we're the interface between the community and our police force, which by contract, the town of Collingwood pays the OPP to be our police force. And so we spend almost $5 million a year for that service. And one of the add-ons we pay for in that is almost $200,000 for someone called a school resource officer, SRO. So you'll see that acronym around if you start reading up on this. So we have a school resource officer who currently is not allowed to go into the high school, which is where this person had been involved. And so just so you know, currently, if school was in session, they have been going over to Hope Chapel, where the students go, I think, one day a week for their hot dogs and to hang out and so on. So when this came to our attention on the Police Services Board, we had a short maybe a lengthy discussion on it. And who's on the Police Services Board, as you may know, aside from myself, Councillor Jeffrey, we have an esteemed chair in Claire Tucker-Reid. The province has appointed Erica Booth, and we're waiting for a second provincial appointment who hasn't been named yet. So anyway, we did have a discussion about this issue because we feel that it is important for our community and our youth to have the ability to interact with a police officer in the schools on a, non-aggressive, non-incident based base, so that all good things will come from that. And we've had someone in the schools for years. So Claire Tucker-Reid did reach out to our school trustee, and apparently the school trustees were advised that this was not a matter for the trustees to decide, that it was merely an implementation of, rules and regulations, and staff had it in hand, and that this was their new policy. I think the trustees are now considering whether the setting of that kind of policy is within their control, as our letter from Ms. Tucker-Reid has established. So where is this right now? So our letter, as you will have read, Deputy Mayor, says we'd like you to consider this, take into account a lot more factors. We feel you've made a hasty decision. We had a joint meeting of our Police Services Board and the Police Services Board for the town of Blue Mountain a couple of weeks ago. And who presented at that meeting was the professor at Waterloo who's undertaking a study on this very topic. And she's working hard on it right now. She sees that Collingwood has an immediate need to have an answer on this. And we'll be consulting with community. And I believe I heard, and I'll see if Councillor Jeffrey heard anything different, but I believe she mentioned perhaps as early as the fall. She'll be in Collingwood talking to the public and to students and so on. So I think we will see more on this issue, but our Police Services Board wanted to make sure that our community had its say and our students had their say as well. You probably saw there's been a petition of some 650 students. I think it was Our Lady of the Bay asking that this person's police officer be reinstated. So there's lots of movement out there. So I think we'll, as I say, see more. I believe this report from the professor, I believe she indicated she thought she'd have a final report by early in the new year. But in the meantime, the school resource officer is not in the schools. Councillor Jeffrey, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think, Mayor Hamlin, you've summarized it quite well.
Okay,
Appreciate that.
no problem. Yes, Councillor Baines.
I'd like to make a comment. I didn't think I'd be mentioning the Optimist Club of Collingwood, but I will. Since 1989, Optimists contributed $4,500 a year up until the conclusion of the DARE program. This is in elementary schools here in Collingwood. Drug awareness reduction everywhere, I think. And I attended many of the graduating ceremonies. Now, this is elementary school, but nevertheless, watched Constable Marcy Rivers interact with the kids before the ceremony, during and after. And I was inspired by the wonderful way, in full uniform, in which she interacted with the kids. Now, I understand the problems in the high schools are perhaps a little more serious, and it's different communities that have different perspectives on this. All I can say is we thought our support of this really did make a tangible difference, particularly in the interaction. And I would just say, as a mediator, these silos of communities are not helping resolve the fundamental issue. So I completely concur with the chair's letter, and I hope that some realistic resolution can be made of this, because it's a shame that it's gotten to this point. That's all I'll say from our experience at any rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, with that discussion in mind, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor of this motion, thank you. That's unanimous. The next item on the agenda arises out of the Committee of the Whole meeting of June 19, 2023. And what I have before us as follows: that Council receive the Committee of the Whole report from its meeting held June 19, 2023, and hereby approve the recommendations contained within the report as presented. Items where action was provided, that was P 2023-050, 50 Saunders Street, zoning bylaw amendment and plan of subdivision. And the amended recommendation was that staff report P 2023-20, draft approval of a plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment, 50 Saunders Street, dated June 19, 2023, be received, and that draft plan of subdivision, file number D12-01120, that's with also respect to 50 Saunders, dated September 4, 2019, revised June 10, dated September 4, 2019, revised June 10, 2023, and attached as Appendix A, be approved, subject to the recommended conditions contained in Appendix B to report P 2023-20 as amended on July 10, 2023, and that zoning bylaw amendment attached as Appendix C to report P 2023-20 to facilitate the implementation of the 50 Saunders Street plan of subdivision be enacted and passed. And I just note here, as our agenda does, that two reports were deferred for consideration. Our treasurer's not at our meeting today, so they're being put over to July 24, 2023, and this was the items relating to the 2022 audited financial statements and the statement of reserves and reserve fund reporting year ended 2023. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to move and second that recommendation. Councillor Jeffrey and Councillor Perry, any comments? Councillor Doherty.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just had two questions with regard to P 2023-20 subdivision zoning bylaw amendment. And I understand that the continued progress of this development is subject to additional conditions. And I just wanted to seek clarity on the current SCAP score for this particular development is sitting at about 44%. And so I'm just wondering, because that is under our identified target of and threshold of 50%, just to confirm how this is considered as the conditions move forward. I guess, i.e., would the proponent be required, or would they be given the opportunity to improve that score as the conditions are ticked off?
Okay, Director Valentine, I think this is a question for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. As the committee members will recall, draft plans of subdivision are typically for larger, more complex developments, and they do take a number of years to come to fruition. And therefore, the Planning Act recommends, or recognizes, I should say, a two-staged approach to approval. The first is draft approval, which is where we're at today with the 50 Saunders parcel. So that's essentially an approval in principle with a number of conditions, several dozen of them, that the owner does have to fulfill prior to council's consideration of registration and final approval, which includes an agreement with the municipality that would allocate the capacity that's been notionally committed through the conditions. So at that time, when the applicant is prepared to move forward with registration, it could be several months from now or up to 3 years from now in accordance with the Planning Act, we would move the application forward to the batch approval process under the servicing capacity allocation policy, and this development would be reviewed in context with the other developments that are being brought forward at that time that are shovel ready, so the score would be compared. It is certainly in the applicant's best interest to work with staff to increase their score over the coming months or potentially years under the SCAP, and we do understand the applicant is prepared to do so. There's a number of matters that will be refined through the conditions of draft approval, including detailed design as well as a construction partner that will assist the applicant to understand where they may be able to gain additional points.
That answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And then just one other question. I had received multiple contacts from residents in the surrounding area asking for reassurance that the property was not going to be clear-cut until such time as they had their final plan of subdivision approved and registered. And can I just confirm that on their behalf?
Of course, Director Valentine.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, and through you, that is correct. There are conditions of draft approval included with this particular application, and they are standard conditions for all plans of subdivision that site alteration can't occur until an agreement with the municipality is executed, and that is the time where the municipality would also look at capacity allocations. So in the future, in the coming months or years, those two matters would be considered in parallel.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor Hammond. I definitely support the motion. But the minutes, there is an outstanding item on them, and I was just wondering if I could ask about a possible update on it. Under Part 8, there was going to be some follow-up in regards to the Sunset Point crosswalk from the note that was in the Trails minutes, I believe, from that meeting. So I wondered if there was any update that could be provided now, or I guess through you to the CAO.
Through the chair, I do not have an update on the Sunset Point crosswalk, but I will make note of that you're looking for that response. Thank you.
Thank you. And just one follow-up, also with the deferral note on the agenda, which is being referred to by Mayor Hamlin in the reading of the motion. And since the minutes don't go into detail about the approval by council last meeting for further reviewing by myself and any other council members with the auditor and treasury, I thought it warranted a little more detail to the public at this time. In anticipation of a very full agenda in 2 weeks, when these do come to the table, that's also another reason for speaking some to it now. Information has been shared with council by email on the discussion of the ad hoc finance meeting held on June the 28th. So just to provide some clarity to the public, there was a fulsome discussion with the auditor about key items. Those are listed in the minutes that were briefly discussed at the meeting. That there wasn't time to go over in detail at the committee of the whole meeting. As anticipated, there were no significant amendments required for the review, and that is why the financial statements and reserve reports had actually received unanimous approval at the committee of the whole. The review did establish a better understanding on some areas that are going to be considered further over the course of 2023. Those being interest revenue risk allocation, the grain terminals contingency that's been set aside in the balance sheet, and the surplus allocation policy. So it may appear that the process has been a little convoluted compared to how it's been handled in the past. I would just point out that an informal meeting with the auditor and staff has been utilized before in the past with previous councils. That could continue in the future if council sets up a formal or even just an ad hoc committee process. We'll also be looking at that on July 24th because that's when the report is planned from staff in regards to the July 20 or the Audit and Finance Committee report. The one change then would be the time to take place probably prior to statement presentation at committee of the whole. That would then help to streamline the process as the details of the initial review will be provided to all of council and the public in advance rather than in between as it's been happening now. So I was just going to say for some final clarity that there was agreement that there is an interest revenue deferral impact with the principal protected note investments, and the effect on current taxpayers should be assessed. Regarding the surplus policy.
Excuse me. I because you're reporting on a meeting that was held with our treasurer, and although I was there, I really feel these conclusions on the meeting should be explained in her presence. And I've let you go on a bit because I understand where you're coming from here, but this item has been deferred for 2 weeks, and I do appreciate it will be a busy agenda. But I think now we're into confirming meeting, and whether she's agreed or hasn't on changes or things that will be looked at. I just feel uncomfortable with her not being here and that this item's deferred. So I think if you could wrap up, and we'll save this for the next meeting, please.
With all due respect, Mayor Hamlin, I was taking that all into account with what I was putting forward right now. This is simply just reaffirming to council members, as I was asked to do at last meeting, which was to report back, and I'm doing that now. And there's nothing in my opinion, that I'm putting forward that I wasn't even planning on asking a question or anything like that. This was just, as I say, providing a report. So I will wind up as I was trying to do. So regarding surplus policy discussions, when the reserve report is presented, it doesn't appear a change in policy wording is required. Just some clarity on minimum and maximum levels on target levels, and ensuring that the policy stipulation that surplus be returned to taxpayers is reviewed. So those are my comments, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I'm looking for a vote on this. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 9.2.1. It's a bylaw. That bylaw number 2023-062, being a bylaw under the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13 is amended to amend the provisions of the zoning bylaw on property municipally addressed as 50 Saunders Street, be enacted and passed this 10th day of July 2023. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Baines, Councillor Potts, any comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. There are no staff reports of which I'm aware. Clerk, is that still correct? Thank you. We have a motion. We have two motions. The first one is from Councillor Doherty, and I'll turn it over to her now.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I will read out, excuse me, I'll read out the motion and I will comment on it last, if I may. So, whereas the Committee of Adjustment is an independent quasi-judicial body appointed by Council under the Planning Act that hears and renders decisions on consents. So new lot creation, lot additions, private easements, etc., and minor variances in cases where a proposal cannot meet the provisions of the zoning bylaw. And whereas the process of making decisions on consents and minor variances is required to take into account the consistency and conformity of the development proposal to the applicable planning instrument, but does include some latitude for the committee to have regard to more subjective matters, such as the surrounding neighborhood context, compatibility, and aesthetic impacts. And whereas the Committee of Adjustment and other advisory committees would benefit from the education and familiarity with the community-based strategic plan, as that plan provides a baseline knowledge of the values of our community, and in this way may inform committee decisions where possible. Therefore, be it resolved that the committee requests staff to provide training on the community-based strategic plan to the Committee of Adjustment and other advisory committees.
Thank you. Would there be a seconder for this motion? Councillor Perry, would anyone like to speak to it? Councillor Baines.
As a former member of the Committee of Adjustment for 4 years, I'm greatly in support of this. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I'm only jealous I never thought of it myself, actually, to propose it as a motion. So congrats to Councillor Doherty on it. I fully support it.
Thank you. I don't see any other comments, so Councillor Doherty, you have the last word.
Thank you very much. So I think that the wording, as always with the assistance of the clerk, explains the intent of the motion very well. But I think because the Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body and it is divorced from council, and thus operates to some degree separate from the other priorities that council and other advisory committees operate under, which are, among others, the community-based strategic plan. And because I'm sure, have heard about decisions in the past from Committee of Adjustment that have led to some consternation and some question from the surrounding residents as to the possible appropriateness of the decision, and I'm not making any judgment on those decisions. But I think that certainly the Committee of Adjustment could only benefit from training on the community-based strategic plan, and therefore I have brought forward this motion.
Okay, thank you. So we'll have a vote then. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. And I'll turn the chair over to our deputy mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. And I'll allow you to read in your motion.
Thank you. Whereas council has heard a variety of public concerns relating to private condominium roads, including snow storage, waste removal, parking, cost of long-term operations and capital renewal, standard of in and above ground infrastructure, and the risk of future municipal assumption, therefore be it resolved that prior to considering direction to staff to address the above noted and related matters through the update of the town's engineering standards, official plan, or both, a legal opinion be sought regarding the extent of the municipality's authority and jurisdiction to either control or restrict private condominium roads, location and or design, through policy or standards. And I'll speak last.
Thank you. And I'll look to a seconder on that motion, Councillor Perry. And I'll ask if you would like to speak first or last.
Well, you know what? I'll speak first. This is before, we have so many people now buying condominiums in our community. And as they move in, they're realizing the obligations that come. Some of the obligations with respect to which we could help make better for them, like snow storage spots or wider roads so that the county could collect garbage, or there's a whole range of things that we could help our residents with. So before we start debating at this table, changes to official plan policy or perhaps engineering standards, staff has suggested that it would be prudent to get a legal opinion as to our authority to do so. So hence the motion here today. Thank you.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So, it makes sense before we send staff out to work on something that we find out if we have the position to do so. That's common sense. What's the cost and what bucket's it coming out of?
I'll turn to CAO Skinner and you can direct.
Through the chair, as this is a notice of motion, we hadn't yet considered the cost. I think reasonably it would be 2 or so hours of legal time at the going rates within our contracts. So not a large cost. I think it would be manageable within our typical legal budget for planning matters.
Okay, thank you.
Any for Councillor Baines?
Thank you. Just sort of a follow-up to that same question. I'm fully in support of this, but surely has no other municipality in Ontario asked the same question of their staff and of their legal representatives? And could they share that with us? I don't know who to address that to. I'd just like to save some dollars.
I'll maybe turn again to CAO Skinner.
Through the acting chair, perhaps to the director of planning for that one.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I think the matter of condominiums in general, being that they're tenure and not land use, they walk a gray area under the Planning Act. So I've seen certainly many different municipal approaches in terms of regulation of condominiums through official plans, and I imagine that's because the legal advice isn't black and white, and there's quite a few shades of gray there. I do continue to recommend that we begin with a legal opinion just to get sort of the parameters of what our town solicitor would be prepared to support. However, a jurisdictional scan would also require quite a bit of staff resources to look at what other municipalities have done. So if you do wish to add that to the motion, just be aware that that would be some additional staff time to devote to this matter.
Thank you.
Any follow-up, Councillor?
No, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. Having just received a note from a resident in one of our condominium corporations making an inquiry on a matter that the town does not have control over because of this exact item, it sort of hammers home to me how important it is for us to have an answer to this question. I can also offer through AMO to see if I can get some idea as to whether any municipality has done a detailed exploration of this from a legal standpoint, and follow up with staff and the mayor on that. And council, of course.
I'll just see if anyone else, Councillor Jeffrey, would like to speak, but okay, Councillor Jeffrey, go ahead.
So I think the only thing that gives me pause is, the statement we just heard that even the legal can be gray area. So I really hope we're going to spend the money and get something. You can keep asking for legal opinions and keep getting different ones until you get the answer you want, I think. That's kind of how it seems to work these days.
I object.
You can object all you want, Mary Ellen. But anyway, I just would hope that our planner, director of planning, is confident that it would give us some structure and something to really rely on other than the gray area that's been referred to, because otherwise we're just trying to nail Jello to a tree.
There isn't anyone else. I'm just a couple of comments I'll make is, I think the other complexity to our situation in regards to the inquiries we get is, of course, the county's involvement in some of the services that are provided. So I'm hoping that through the investigation, we'd make sure, I'm sure that the director's already thought of this, that the county would be part of the conversation. Also, I would look at this as somewhat like an update, a better understanding of the current lay of the land, because obviously we've been dealing with this for decades, and but there's a lot of changes that have gone through. So it can be a situation where it's just refreshing and getting a better understanding of what the existing rules and regulations, how they impact us. So I'm supportive of the motion as it's put forward. So any other further comments? Not seeing it, I will call this a vote. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. And I will turn the chair back to Mayor Hamlin.
Thank you. The next item is a bylaw regarding the road assumption Mountain Road widening project. And just to advise that what this relates to is staff has been busy acquiring the land necessary to widen Mountain Road, and so they have the lands in hand now, and so this is to dedicate those lands so that they're formally part of a highway under the Municipal Act. So I'll just read what it says here, that bylaw number 2023-063, being a bylaw to assume and dedicate certain land as part of a highway for the purpose of widening Mountain Road, be enacted and passed this 10th day of July, 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Potts and Councillor Ring. Any comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The next bylaw is the bylaw number 2023-064, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, be enacted and passed this 10th day of July, 2023. And this bylaw, as you know, appoints Casey Morrison to a 3-year term expiring March 31, 2026, and Norm Sandberg to a 1-year term expiring March 31, 2024. So could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Doherty and Councillor Baines. Any comment? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Jeffrey, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. If you wouldn't mind announcing for the record that I did recuse myself from 12.1, please.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey did leave the room for the discussion and voting for item 12.1. Thank you. And the last item under the motion section is that bylaw number 2023-065, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal law enforcement officer for the corporation of the town of Collingwood, be enacted and passed this 10th day of July, 2023. And this is to appoint Stephen Dennis Barry Forbes. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Houston and Councillor Perry, any comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Are there any notices of motion here today? Council, any member of council like to bring forward? No? Okay. County report. Deputy Mayor, would you have something you wish to add to this today?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. First, I wanted to report about a recent request for interest by Simcoe County for private and not-for-profit organizations regarding development of affordable or supportive housing. Simcoe wants to use the responses to gauge the kind of demand for projects to help determine how to prioritize future funding opportunities. The opportunities will be contingent on eligibility criteria and availability. Simcoe is also establishing their next 10-year affordable housing and homelessness prevention strategy, so this information will be critical to the completion of the plan. I wanted to note that our Affordable Housing Task Force is reviewing the documents in conjunction with our coordinator, Ray, and working on communicating the opportunity to the appropriate organizations in our locale. So, of course, Coordinator Ray will be the best one to reach out to for anybody in organizations who's interested, or even if councillors had questions. The other item I wanted to report on is something that's a result of, I read a weekend Toronto Star article that highlighted inconsistent allocation of assessment values by impact in Toronto. It's being discussed by this council, and I also pointed out concerns to previous council that I believe there's a major issue that the province has only made worse by continually delaying the regulated adjustment implementation. The article shows it's a province-wide issue, but of course, Collingwood's issue is the one that we will be focusing on. So while I was considering this, I had one immediate thought in that there's an excellent tool that Simcoe County provides, which those interested could use to get some further understanding of their current assessment situations. There's an internet link under www.opengis.simcoe.ca, which is very useful. It contains, for your property, obviously assessment value, but a number of other things, the closest hydrant, that type of detail. So I just wanted to mention that because I use it myself sometimes when I want to look into things. And it's something that I don't know that everybody would be aware of. As I said, it's a very easy tool to go in and just look at Collingwood and look at your property and get those details. So I was just providing that in case anybody was interested. And those were the items I had for today.
Thank you. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. And the motion is as follows: that council hear and receive the general consent agenda, and further that the information and opinions provided in the general consent agenda items are that of the author and are not verified or approved as being correct. 15.1, Collingwood Pride, July 14 to July 23rd, 2023. Flag raising event, Friday, July 14, 2023 at 5 p.m. And the clock tower will be illuminated blue, green, purple, and red. And 15.2, Collingwood Police Services Board request for reinstatement of school resource officers in Collingwood schools. And of course, this is the matter we discussed earlier in the agenda. Could I have a mover and a seconder to accept this, to receive this, please? Councillor Houston and Deputy Mayor. Anyone wish to speak to either of those matters? Seeing none, all those in favor, and that's unanimous. Thank you. Would there be any old or deferred business? Would there be any other business today? Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Your Worship. I sent you a note earlier today asking if I could provide council with an update on where Executive Director Peg, Clerk Almas, and myself, our participation in the PMI WIL, which is Partnership for Municipal Innovation, Women in Local Leadership mission to Ghana. I understand that Executive Director Peg is away, and I would like to then hold the presentation. Besides, I'm sure it'll be a lot more multimedia than mine's going to be. But I will say that it was the opportunity of a lifetime, speaking for myself. Little teaser. I met the Ghanaian Hazel McCallion, and it was quite an amazing thing to do. I also spoke to a single mother who had been provided a grant by the municipality of New Juaben to start a business, and she had gone from being just this side of out on the street picking garbage to having created a viable small business where she was employing other women and producing a high demand and very beautiful set of beading products. So we were incredibly busy, very long days. It certainly was not a holiday, but just for me, it was absolutely transformative, and I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that. And we will provide a more fulsome account to council on July 24th.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. We're looking forward to more than your sneak preview, which I'm sure is going to be very interesting. I hope there's photos. Okay, we're now to the hold on, one more thing.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to quickly jump in there. We have a very busy agenda on the 24th, so it may be the 31st. So if people are waiting for that presentation.
All right. The clerk's the boss in this regard. Okay. All right, we have a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2023-066, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special meeting held June 26, 2023, and regular meeting of council held July 10, 2023, be enacted and passed this 10th day of July, 2023. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Potts and Councillor Ring. Any questions? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. And who would like to move the adjournment? I think it's Councillor Jeffrey this afternoon. Thank you, Councillor. And all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. That was a great meeting.
I have just a 5.
So